I was 18 years young with a funny name, zero reputation, no family connections, and no money. And in this video, I'm gonna cover exactly what I did in the first year of my business to go from having zero clients, zero employees, tens of thousands of dollars of debt, to having more clients than I can handle, 6 crews running on 6 job sites, a foreman managing the whole thing for me, a sales rep, and multiple 6 figures in profit in just 2 years. What I'm gonna show you in today's video is the step-by-step blueprint I use to get these results. I'm gonna break this video down into 5 important sections. Number 1, the basics. This is what you will need to basically get started. Number 2, how clients financed my business. Number 3, how I got 13 plus leads per week for free. Number 4, how I priced bids at 50% profit. And number 5, how I found reliable employees. Number 1, the basics, what I basically started out with and what you would need as well. So I was lucky when I first got started to have enough money to buy 2 main things, flyers and contract. But I didn't have enough money to start buying equipment. My goal was that really I wanted to look professional. And I was gonna be going into some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in my city trying to convince them to give me a shot. I know that I can't just show up, write a number on the back of a business card, and then hope to get the job. If I was gonna win bids over contractors that have been at it much longer than I am, then I have to bring something to the table that just most people did not. Professionalism. I realized that it's not usually the contractor who is the best at the trade that wins the bid. It's the one that the client feels the most comfortable with, which is why I made it a priority to get professional. Now, I believe there's 2 types of professionalism. Number 1, I called tangible, and number 2 is non-tangible professionalism. So tangible professionalism is actually things that that exists in the real world. It's your look, your beard, your hair, your polo, your contracts. It's things like your business cards. Now, if you're strapped for cash, the only thing you would actually need are contracts, which you can print out for like $20. And if you can't find $20, probably don't run a contracting business. And you don't necessarily need flyers or business cards. You can actually get away with virtual business cards that you can make for free. And I'll link some of these in the description. Now, I will make a disclaimer. The worst thing you can do when starting out is to get a fancy truck so you can look professional. Okay, clients are concerned more with the quality of the workmanship and the reputation of the contractor rather than the brand of the truck that you arrive in. And on top of that, when you're starting out, you really need to be lean. And when you add a monthly overhead and a truck payment, you just start maximizing for short-term goals where you just want to get some cash in the door versus making long-term decisions. Now, let's talk about non-tangible professionalism. Now, non-tangible professionalism, in my opinion, is more important than the previous. And some of the least professional people I have met have looked the most professional until they opened their mouths. And that's because things like your skill, saying please and thank you, not over-promising, finishing what you start, having other clients or people in your life willing to vouch for your character. I mean, these things are what matter. And I have a whole video on this topic that I can point you at the end of this video if you want more detail on how to build your reputation when you're just starting your contracting business. Now, if you're like me, once you understand these things, you're probably going to wonder, okay, how do you get everything you need to actually do the jobs for the clients? Eventually, you'll need to buy tools, ladders, drills, and everything in between. So how do you get the money? I've seen other contractors bury themselves in debt to buy materials, and then they spend the next 5 years trying to climb their way out of it, that materials and tools. But I realized it's just not necessary. I was taught by one of my mentors that instead of using your own money, you can use your clients to finance your business. That's how I was able to buy thousands in materials and equipment without taking on $1 of debt. So let's talk about that. Part 2, client financing. So here's how I did it. I started my business on a February, but we didn't start doing any work for my clients until May, since most of my work was in the exterior and I lived in Canada. All I focused on was marketing, sales, and hiring for the first 3 months. I wanted time to hire employees, time to stack cash in the bank using the method I'm about to tell you, and time to focus on booking clients. And I wanted to book all of them for the first part of the spring, which is what I did. And if I needed some extra cash, I would do small jobs to cover any bills that I needed. And I only started out with free marketing methods, which I'm going to talk about next. So there's no cost here. But here's the secret to having your clients finance your business. Every time I booked a job with a client, I took a 25% deposit. Now, since I was very professional throughout the entire process and everything was in a written agreement, they had no problem giving me a 25% deposit. And guess what happened? By the time the spring rolled around, I already had dozens of jobs booked. And most importantly, I had tens of thousands in deposit, which allowed me to get all the materials that I needed to do all the work I just booked. So instead of financing your business with credit cards and IOUs, get your clients to finance your business. And if 25% is just not enough, go for 50%. I've seen arrangements where you can take a 25% deposit and then another 25% deposit on day one if the client is hesitant on giving deposits due to maybe they had a bad experience in the past. But then this raises the question, how do you get clients? Well, here is how I find these clients when I was just starting out without spending any money. And here's how I found 15 hot leads per week for free. As I mentioned, I had no money and no reputation, but I needed to find work. And the biggest secret I learned from my mentors is this. Before you go for commercial work, you need cash, because those jobs can sometimes be net 60 or more, which means you need cash to keep you alive, paying for payroll. And the best way to keep yourself alive is by getting residential work. And residential work comes from residents with homes. So I asked him, what do I do? He just looked at me and said, grow a pair, knock on some doors, and ask them if they need some work done. So that's what I did. I started going door to door in my neighborhood, asking people what work they had planned for the summer for the specific trades that I could do. When I started out, I stumbled. But it didn't take long for people to start giving me their information to get a free quote. Within the first 5 doors, I had a lead. Now, obviously, it usually takes around 30 doors to get a lead from my experience, but every hour I went out, I got a person who wanted work done and who was serious about hiring me. So this worked in middle-class neighborhoods, and funny enough, it worked better in some of the nicest areas in my city. And for every 3 leads that I got, I was able to set up a bid with somebody who was ready to make a decision, who needed this job done. And after a week of doing this every day, I was able to start setting up bids with homeowners. And after working, I can tell you this, after working with over 400 contractors across multiple trades through mybusinesscontracting.com, we found that every trade sees massive success with door-to-door. And once you get good, you can even get a door-to-door team, so you don't have to do it yourself. So now that I had all these bids to give, I knew that the next thing I had to do was understand and learn how to price them at 50% profit as my mentor did, as the most successful contractors I read about online do, and as the bare minimum that I needed to truly have the profit required to get the best employees and the best equipment for the business. Because if you really stop and do the math and really think about what you actually need to make a good living, to live a good life these days as a contractor, you just can't be quoting jobs for less than 50% profit, especially when you're getting started. But I knew I was good. And while I didn't quote it at 65% like my mentor did, 50% gave me room to build a business I wanted. Again, I was lucky to get a lot of help from my mentor on how to price these jobs where I would make a healthy profit from the start. He helped me take the guesswork out of bidding. And this is exactly what I want to share with you. Part 4. This is how I was able to win bids at 50% profit. And most importantly, here's how I priced them at 50% profit. I wasn't interested in spending tons of time on the tools. So I wanted to price my bids in a way where I can afford to pay somebody else to do the work and I still make good money. And I've seen a lot of contractors with decent margins where they're the ones swinging the hammer. But if they had to pay someone else to do that work, their profit on the job just wouldn't be sustainable. So here's a basic formula you can use when you're starting out so you can price your jobs at 50% profit. It's actually quite simple. First, you gotta figure out how much time it will take to complete the job. Then, you take the total hours you expect it to take and then multiply it by how much you would have to pay someone to do it for you. Now, if you don't know how long something should take to complete, time yourself the next time you do it. And the goal is to figure out how many square feet can you complete per hour, linear feet, or based on the installation you're making, how much of those can you do in a specific time. And then you will be able to create what we call a standard. So for example, If you look at this wall and you know that from your experience installing a wall like this will take you around 5 hours, that is what you're going to be using to do this math. Now, once you know how long something should take, let's say it should take 100 hours, now we got to find people to do that job for. So in my area, I was able to find employees that can get the job done at 20 bucks an hour. So all I had to do was take the 100 hours and the $20, combine them, and you get 2,000 bucks to get a team to do it. Now, if we're going to spend like 800 bucks on material, you just add that $800 to the 2,000, and then you multiply by 2. You take your labor and material, add it together, and then multiply it by 2. If you don't know what to do, multiply it by 2. Now, as soon as I started booking work, I started looking for people, and learning how to hire reliable crews and employees is not easy. So if you're going to do work for clients, you're putting your reputation on the line. So it's very, very important that it's done correctly. And it wasn't until I met a millionaire contractor who taught me everything he knew that I was actually able to learn how to hire and fully get off the tools and have my freedom from the business. He taught me how to hire, what he called self-managing crews. This brings me to part 5. How to hire reliable employees. I learned that hiring is just like marketing. You can't expect to put out some job ad that you wrote in 5 minutes and expect to just attract great people. Great people want to work for great companies. And I found great people by advertising my job in every way that I could. Every hiring site, social media network, and even calling everyone of my friends and family. I spent hours perfecting my job posts, hours reaching out, and I designed them in a way, these posts, where the lazy, unreliable people were drawn away from it and the hardworking, ambitious, and reliable people were drawn to it like a magnet. And my application process wasn't simply send me your resume, I'll give you a quick call and you're hired. The volume of applicants I was getting, I needed to design a filtering system where I can actually figure out, using the right questions, who's good, who's bad, before even getting them on a phone call. And then I would phone them. So once I figured out who's good, who's bad, I'd phone them and I would ask them a series of specific questions that would reveal just how ready they are for a job like this. So sometimes I would ask people a question like, this job sucks. You gotta work in the heat. Sometimes you gotta work weekends. And if we get rained out, yeah, you have to put in those extra hours. Clients will be picky. Like, why on earth do you want a job like this? It's questions like that that would tell me a lot about a person's character and work ethic. And then from there, I'd pick the best 3 people and let them try out for the company. I'd bring them on site for a half a day and a full day, and then give them tasks to complete. And if they're good, I'd offer them 2 weeks worth of work. And if that worked out, I'd give them a full-time position. Now, this is a lengthy process, and I really want to make sure we're on the same page here that yes, you got to start out by writing a really good ad. Then you got to reach out to all your friends and family and post it everywhere. You got to be expecting to spend a little bit of money to get those eyeballs on there. And if it's written properly, you should get flooded with applicants. Then you got to learn how to read through the applicants and understand who's good, who's bad. Then you got to make a phone call. And in a quick 5 to 10 minutes, by asking the right questions like the one I showed you, you can know who's good and who's bad. Then you bring them out for an in-person interview so you can get to know a little bit more about them and seeing what it looks like on the jobs. Now, once you've done that, that's when, if they're good, you offer them 2 weeks. And if they pass your 2-week test, hire them full-time. Now, this is a lengthy process, and it took a lot of trial and error to get it right. And when we teach this system to people that work with us, at contracting.com, we're able to help them hire a reliable employee in just 60 days without all the trial and error. But if you're trying to design this system yourself, you're gonna want to remember, a pint of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's way better to spend the time filtering out applications than to hire someone who will potentially ruin your reputation and or cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So all these things, these marketing, sales, and hiring systems are what allowed me to go from being totally unknown to making 6 figures in my contracting business. And if you want to see more videos like this, then hit subscribe. I put out new videos every week to help contractors grow their business faster. See you in the next video.